Welcome back to the Student Hub Live orientation for education, childhood, youth and sport. Now, being an OU student has many, many benefits, but one of them is access to the library. Not only the library resources, but the fabulous team of librarians. And joining me to tell you how they can help you in their studies is Wendy Chambers. Welcome, Wendy. So we're going to give people a rundown about the library. Yep. We've heard today that some students are worried about referencing, and I know that you're familiar with this because you're running a help session. In fact, is that tonight?
Referencing will be the following week. We're doing one on smarter searching this evening, but we do run sessions.
You do lots and lots of sessions online that anyone can go to. But I wanted to talk about what the library was and how students might make the most of it. So, what is the online library and why should students be using it?
Okay, well, first of all, we have a fantastic range of resources which students can use. So as well as the resources, we have help and support available. And I'll go into a bit more detail about that, but we have help and support on the library website, and we also have training sessions where students can develop their skills to get the most out of the library. So we'll have both the resources and the support there.
Okay, so two very, very important things. For level 1 students then, they're probably not going to need to do much research themselves. However, they might be interested, and they can go and search for a lot of things in the library, which are all free, and the library is an amazing resource. But you mentioned the services and the sort of support that's there, and I think that's something that perhaps is less obvious to people who don't know about it, because you think, oh, well, a library's just a thing. It's, you know, an online library might just be access to lots of articles and things. But your services, I think, are really what separate you as a library from you know, other libraries.
Yeah, we have a whole range of services and they support the use of the resources. So if I just say a little bit about the resources, we have reference collections, we have journal databases, we have ebooks, and we have interactive databases. So at level 1, students may well be interested in some of our reference collections. So if they come across a new term or concept, for example, if they're a sport and fitness student, they may want to look up motor skills or kinesiology in the Oxford Dictionary of Sports Medicine. That gives them a really specific, relevant definition. So we have collections such as Oxford Reference, Credo Reference, which students can search across to just get a little bit background information about a new topic. And as they go on to level 2, level 3, they'll begin to use the journal articles and the databases. So Sport Discus for sports fitness students, Education Research Complete. So these are the collections of journal articles, and these are scholarly articles written by experts in the field. And these are really useful if you're asked to find additional information for your assignment. Using these scholarly articles will be really helpful.
Okay, now students can find these how?
How to find them? Well, on the library website, we have selected resources for your study sections. So for each of your subject areas, for example, go to education, subsection for developmental psychology, there's a sport and fitness section. So some of the key resources in those subject areas, so the databases, the ebooks, we now have almost 500,000 ebooks in the library, and the reference sources, they will be under selected resources for your study. And so that's a really good starting point, just to think, which database am I going to search? I'll go to Sport and Fitness and I'll find Sport Discus or Anatomy TV. But another route is library search. And library search is a really good tool because it searches across many of the library resources, not all of them, but it's a really good starting point. So if you just want to do a search on a general topic, child development, start with library search and you can refine, you can look for an ebook, look for a reference source or an article. And you can also save anything you find. You have your own personal bookshelf, so anything you find you might be of interest, you just sign in, save, and you can come back to that at any point. So if you're looking for sources for your assignment, that's a really good tool.
Brilliant. So there's two sorts of things you've mentioned there. One is the sort of proactive specific searching. So say a student's interested in something, maybe that's to do with their assignment, or just generally they might say, you know, is chocolate a good idea for children to eat before school or after school? So they might want to have something very specific like this, and they can go and look things up in the library using library search.
Right.
But you also mentioned some of these journals, and you know they're often printed, you know, and they're very expensive.
They are.
And they are like magazines, and sometimes it's really nice to be able to sort of say, actually, I just want to keep abreast of the field. It might be that you find a journal that you like if you're really into a certain area, like sport and fitness, for example, or something quite niche, and you think, actually, I'd just like to know what's happening every month.
Yep, there's a whole range of journals. Some can be quite difficult and quite academic, but for example, for education, there's a little collection called Interred, which is very popular with people studying primary school education or child development. And as students are working through their modules, they'll often find that particular journals are recommended by their modules. So, for example, strength and conditioning is quite a popular one in sport and fitness. News archives are also quite useful. Again, for keeping abreast with what's happening. Sometimes the recent research is published in the newspaper before it's published in the journal, and also the latest news on policy changes, perhaps in education. So we have good news archives. Nexus UK is a particularly useful archive that students can have a look at.
So students can access all of this for free because the library subscribe to all of these journals,
Yes,
etc.
that's right. Yes, yep. Everything just go straight to the library, and access should be seamless. If you do need to log on to anything, it's just simply your Open University computer username and password. But access should be seamless if they're already logged on to Student Home, for example.
Okay. Now, we asked people earlier how often they use the library. Let's see what you have to say at home. So, 29% hardly ever, 29% sometimes, but a lot of people always use the library. We're not sure which library, Wendy, because the question could be interpreted many different ways. But library services and a library is a really important part of academic study. However, there is so much information. I mean, in particular, you start looking online and before you know it, it's midnight or something and you've gone off on a completely different tangent. So there is this overwhelming range of information and it's very exciting to know you can get it all for free. But how do students both manage that and also how do they know what a good source of information is?
Okay. Well, most of the sources within the library are good quality, mainly academic sources, so these should be useful to use in an assignment. But even within that mass, you have to select the right information. So we sometimes recommend evaluation criteria or assessment criteria, which you can use when you're looking for a particular source of information. So I think I've mentioned prompt to you before, and it's just something to think about in the back of your head. Think about the presentation, whether it's relevant, whether the article is objective, whether there's evidence that supports the arguments. You might look at the methodology, perhaps the sample size or how the research has been carried out. And you want to look at the source, so perhaps the provenance of the article. Is the article written by someone who's an expert in the field? And also when it was published, when the article was published, is there some more recent information? So that's just one set of criteria that you can use when you're looking for some sources for your assignment. There's several others, such as who, why, when, which you can apply to a website. Why is it there? When was it last update? And perhaps just think about what is the purpose of that website. Is it promoting something? Is the material biased? Is it quite sound? So that's quite a lot to remember. So this is where the library help and support comes in, because actually on the library the website we have a help and support section. We have getting started with online library, and if you have a browse through that, you'll find some material about how to get the most out of the library, how to evaluate your sources. I mentioned prompts, so it'll give you a little bit more information about that, and it'll also lead to a little website we have called Being Digital.
Oh, yes.
And that's it's a collection of bite-sized activities, about 10 minutes long, and they cover different pathways. So, for example, finding information, evaluating information, communicating online. So these are really useful exercises you can do just to develop your own digital and information literacy skills, and to make students just feel more confident in finding the right good quality information.
Brilliant. Now, you covered a lot there, and you've mentioned a lot of things that I think are really worth sort of just pausing for a moment and reflecting on. So one of them is that you've got some criteria that's helpful for students.
Yeah.
And I guess it's that sense really that there is this information and there is a need to critically evaluate it.
Definitely.
And so what the library are doing is giving students tools to be able to say, here's a framework you can apply, and it might be this or it might be that. And they don't need to worry about that right now, because one of the things that you as a team do is embed a lot of digital skills into the module material.
We do.
So students might meet these criteria along the way as activities within their module. So they might be used to seeing them. But if they want to find out more, they certainly can. And you've also mentioned a lot of the support that you offer to students. Now, I said earlier that referencing can be a big thing for new students, often because it's a thing that we don't know how to do. So why is it important, aside from how to do it, but why is it important for students to reference sources, and why might they be so mindful of it?
Okay. It's important. It's important to credit. If a student uses the ideas or the words of someone, it's important that they credit those ideas to that person, and that avoids any charges of plagiarism. So it's just generally it's right to credit the ideas of others, and by referencing, you're also providing support to your own arguments. It's not just your opinion, but you're showing that an authority or an expert is providing the evidence to support those arguments. So when students should reference is really whenever they use anyone else's ideas and arguments. So that, I'm sure you're going to ask me about the how to reference. On the library help desk, we get quite a few calls from students worrying about whether they're referenced correctly. And I think the important thing to think about referencing is, can someone else find that source from the information you provide? And that's the reason you provide the information. And we have something called the OU Harvard Guide to Reference, which is often available on most module websites and available from the library homepage. And students should find an example of how to reference almost any type of source. Module material, an ebook, an extract from a dictionary, a whole range of sources. So you can simply look at that guide and copy.
Perfect. Now that's good. And like you said, there's these help sessions that they can watch. And you've got your Facebook page, which tells everyone about it, doesn't it?
We have a Facebook page. We have a range of training sessions, which we run fairly regularly, very regularly at this time of year. They're 30-minute sessions, and they can be accessed from the Training and Events tab on the library website. So we have Introduction to Library Services, which is very useful for students starting. And we have, for example, smarter searching of library databases, which is useful for level 2, level 3 students, and also a session on the why and the how of referencing. So we run live sessions regularly, and as I said, the schedule is available on the library website, but there's also recordings available. So if students can't make the live sessions, they are useful because it gives the opportunity to ask questions. There's always a recording available which can be viewed at any time.
Lovely. Now, I must end by asking you about the help desk, because you have an amazing 24/7 web chat service.
We do, yes, yeah. So the library help desk can be contacted at any time, by telephone, by email, and 24 hours is a web chat service, and that's because we're part of a cooperative. So those queries, if someone's burning the midnight oil, working at 1 o'clock in the morning for some reason, they have a query, just get onto web chat, and that your query will be picked up from one of our colleagues in the United States of America. And those their students, the university libraries in America, their students will be using the same or similar databases to Open University students. So in most cases, they're able to help and deal effectively with inquiries. So it's a great service.
Lovely. Now, people on Facebook have been talking about Sconnell. What's that all about then?
Sconnell. Again, that's a very popular scheme.
Scheme.
That enables you, if you join SCONO, enables you to access a physical university library close to where you live. So you can use the study areas and you can often borrow printed books. And to join that scheme, simply go to the library website. Go to Help and Support and you'll see a link to libraries near you, and you'll find an application form there. And that's a really great scheme, and it's very popular for undergraduate and postgraduate students. They find it very useful. We have a flood of applications coming in at this time of year.
Perfect, excellent. No, I've heard people doing it as well, so that's great to know about. Well, thank you very much, Wendy, for filling us in. Sadly, that's all we have time for, so we have to shelve the library for now, but they will be back tonight, where we're going to talk about library services for postgraduate studies. Whether or not you're doing postgraduate studies, it's really interesting to know things like how to do a literature search and how to access methods books and things. So do join us for that session later. We'll be back from 6 o'clock this evening, where we've got lots more lined up for you, including critical thinking, postgraduate studies, sport and fitness, and also how to study like an athlete. So lots and lots of great stuff there for you in addition to the library. HJ, you've been wonderful. Thank you for all your chat throughout the day. And don't forget, we've got sessions tomorrow also, so you can find out more about those on the Student Hub Live website, and also the events that we've got lined up in October in Adobe Connect, all about enhancing your writing. The library Facebook page will also tell you about all of the events that you can also access from library on your student homepage, the training and events. Well, that's all from us for this afternoon. Goodbye for now, wherever you are, and we will see you hopefully again at 6 o'clock tonight.